So I wanted to do the Sermon on the Mount to start off. Um, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him. Their need for Him. Okay? So, because just before, if they say shit hits the fan, everybody's needs, like their idea of needs, do get met. Okay? For theirs is the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses those who mourn, for they will be comforted. God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the earth. God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called children of God. God blesses those who are persecuted for doing right, for the kingdom of God is theirs. And then God blesses you when people mock or persecute you, lie about you, all sorts of evil things against you because you are my followers. Be happy about it. Be glad, for a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted the same way. Okay, so I'm going to go to the next one, which is the teaching about salt and light, which a lot of people are into the light movement. You are the salt of the earth, but what good is salt if it loses its flavor? So can you make it salty again? It will be thrown out and trampled underfoot as worthless. Go back to Asa. The best seer started with him. Somebody who is like, if you ever watched Odysseus, like when they were doing this type of thing where it's like trying to attempt to make perception of ages different, you know, thus creating imps, what they call imps, imps in time or whatever. The point of even though it's like a good story, it's probably better than any of the Greek stories out there. He comes back as a young man, because when he left and he went on all these journeys, they basically terrorized his place, but then he comes back as a young man. So Asa, the seer, was like the salt. He was like the salt, and he got a disease from not listening to that one. But ironically, it happens with Peter, because Peter said he wanted to be crucified upside down, so the salt goes back on the head. See what I'm saying? Okay, so teaching about the law, don't misunderstand why I have come. I did not come to abolish the law of Moses or the writings of the prophets. So in all context of time, I'm going to start off with the period where he went through these kings and stuff like that and trying to get Jesus along the way, was probably his most patient I've ever seen. So I'm going to show you something about pre-flooded, whereas in Matthew it says that there were some who possibly were resurrected from pre-flood. So you heard it said before that the first shall be last, the least shall be first, or like the least shall be first, and the last who were the greatest shall be last. So, stuff like that. That's pretty much what it is. The least in their time, that really didn't do much to provoke any of God's anger on humanity, probably were resurrected and got to partake in hearing like the message afterflow through the disciples and through Paul and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to play something though that goes alongside of it. Now in this, they call it the apocalyptic future. This is why I said a lot of people like doing this stuff might jump into Australia and go around the road that goes all the way around in a circle around the continent, because basically it's like as if they call everyone crazy. They called Noah crazy, you know. The craziest ever, though, in the book is not because people were blinded by the law, by anything, but the chance of taking God's life in a way of voting. They went crazy. Like, this is, like, when I read it, I don't listen to it like, oh, we crucified God and all that kind of stuff. I don't listen. I was like, this, when the opportunity arose, they went freaking crazy. That's the part that I was like, they went crazy in. But in this one, there's the Road 9, which I'll get into. It marks this road as a circle of 9 type thing. The cops, the jurors, the people who called people crazy, they were all of the same. They were of the same fold, so to speak. You know, they were folding in the same way. But I'm gonna go to the part where something from the past kind of came up. Not all of this stuff, but because there was the greatest of the pre-flood days would be like the ones that were least that were resurrected would be long suffering for the worst or the greatest at that time of the days of Noah. Long suffering for them to see what happened, because I'll tell you something, if they're witnesses to the destruction of humanity, the word the Son of God makes more difference to them in forgiveness than it does to us. But we also get to partake in understanding in it, like we get to have that love. So it's a part of us, and they get to have that love too, but it makes more of a difference. So they have more to fight against our own time. Basically, remember where God said he loathed humanity. He can use their resurrections as a way to fight against our own destruction, our own, what do they call it, warfare, ugly war against our own flesh and blood about it. So these are like, I wanted to show that, like, they go there and they get the elephants. That was in one of the Christmas movies. And there's I think it was that, like, one of the greatest guys that actually met Noah pre-flood died from a flood, when the flood and an animal with tusks killed him. So these are like people that really, really, and some of them aren't. Some of them are not what you call Book of Luke, where they think that they give birth, because that was a big thing. Like, they don't understand it, so they think they gave birth to the spirit of repentance through their friend who's like the same age. You see what I'm saying? Like, that becomes their prophet or something like that. That was and then you'll see it on here 9. So I'm going to go back to Matthew 2. It makes mention of Rebecca in Matthew 2. And it goes down to where it's mentioned as Jesus of Nazareth, but mine is like Asa. It says, when Herod died, an angel of the Lord, but you have to remember this, take the child and his mother back to Israel, because those who were trying to kill the child are dead. So, like, you'll get this, like, thing where, like, they try to get into, they allow themselves to be fooled. They try to use Israel to get them to go after children death again, because they're stuck between Negev and jumping into Babylon. Like, they're not really crossing what's real. And then some of them are on Luke thing because, well, I'm going to be honest with you. Methuselah was the one who kind of made Noah look crazy enough to do what he did, but not be touched while he was doing it, okay? So it wasn't the current system of taking drugs now today. It wasn't. That's why Tusk is kind of like important. And some of the people that had reason to do the things that they did. So now another thing that's important is then if you go back to Chronicles and you go back to, I think it's either Kings or 2 Samuel, David tested his warriors to go into Bethlehem and retrieve waters from Bethlehem, and this is in Matthew 2, but he refused to drink of it because there was a reason for that. So when you see like people using cancer and AIDS alongside each other a lot, and it's always coming back to like it's tons of kids that got it, and then you got to give your money today. Once it really starts, like some of these people who are in churches who say that they want to do the Catholic doctrine, but they want to sell those kinds of things, will always try to use children first. Like it won't start off with a few people that have older people that have cancer. It will usually start off with children. So if you really, really look into that, you will understand. So then the teaching of the law, then it goes to about anger, which I got a lot of, but someone changed it to Gehenny, I don't know. And it's hard for me to like get past that anger, but it's okay because I know that some of them don't understand it yet. But it goes to the building of a solid foundation, and then he talks about that even some, I tell you this, many Gentiles will come from all over the world, from east and west, and will sit down with Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and at the feast of the kingdom. But many Israelites, for those whom the kingdom is prepared, will be thrown out. This is like that other one where like, go away from me, you evildoers type thing. The way I look at it is the trust that God can heal. Like, would they'd never allow that in society. A lot of these, they just never allow you to be able to trust God that he can heal you or somebody else. They start drifting away from that. And it's our generation, but lo and behold, you have people probably being resurrected that were the worst, who knew that if they didn't, that they witnessed God's actual anger against humanity. Do you see what I'm saying? They've actually witnessed it. So the Son of God, actually, the word Son of God becomes more important to them. We're God, Jesus, being God for us over what we do now in slow ways. Biological warfare, like warfare against, like, Tusk is probably going to be badass against them, because if they did know the Son of God, they probably would have repented too. So I'm going to let that be that. It's the best salt I can give for some of these that are going through trying to go Paul Walker, God walked with Enoch, and then all of a sudden they die from getting high. Well, no crap, like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, you are this time. I know that the Gilead one is really hard to see. It's really hard to see, like, the difference in wanting to keep something going, but then it goes like an age group thing. So then they'll have like AIDS and cancer will use both age groups or two different ones, and then AIDS will always use two different ones. So like next one will be the sister one. Some sisters will say their brothers who are not their brothers raped them. Just like when I first came on Facebook, they had kids with diseases and stuff like that. They were hit yes and say a prayer. It was like no. And then my sister got the information of a person that I knew in high school, but I knew them in my class. See what I'm saying? It's fun.